This video will cover working with the new GRS or MSE wall template component. So we've got our example project already set up. We're going to dive right into it in our templates. So I've got my typical road geometry here. I'm going to just duplicate that. I'm going to give this a name. And I'm going to grab that GRS or MSE wall component here. So this will be on the library. I've already got it locally on my machine. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into this template where we'd like to assign it. I'm going to paste as new. And right off the bat, it's not doing what I'd like, and that is because the sequence matters. So usually this template will be added as the first template in the list, or component in the list. So we have that. We've got our roadway afterwards. Of course, if you're building a wall without a road on top of it, you don't need the road afterwards. But sequence here does matter. Now another thing, I don't want my ditch being added on the outside of this, so I'm going to remove my ditch where I have the wall assigned. So, at a glance, it looks reasonable. Now let's just move this around and we'll talk about some of the behavior that we have going on here to start. Now, I can see I'm moving this around and the toe here is fixed. Now it's going to adjust if we move it over, but it's being built off of a common datum. So that way you're stepping things along and the elevation of your blocks, the longitudinal profile of your blocks should remain consistent with a step at the top if needed. So let's dive into the parameters here. We've got our vertical and horizontal offset. So this just refers to where it's attached relative to center line. If I change this to a positive value, we see it gets shifted up. So you'll typically want that set to be appropriate given the geometry that's going on top of it. So that's both horizontal and vertical offset. Here we have our face height. So it's being highlighted. And I'll just turn this off for a moment. But that face height is just referring to the height of facing elements. So if you're using cages, baskets, blocks, etc., it's going to be the height of those blocks. Face width, same but the other direction, so the width of that facing element. And then we have the face offset. So the step size of the steps. If we set that to 0, it's going to be entirely vertical. The width, if you are just using a infinitely narrow facing element, you can go with a facing element with a 0 width. I'll come back and talk about this here later. So B fixed toe. Right now this is being stepped through to set the block height to have at least a minimum depth. And that minimum depth is set down here. Toe or of wall or elevation datum. So that's referring to what we're measured off of. I'm going to leave it at 100 for now. So I've got a spacing of, or a height of 1. So each block should be on an integer basically. So we've got, if that was elevation 100, this would be 101, 102. If that was elevation 200, that would be 102, 103. Or 101, 102. We've got our leveling course offset, so the offset to the front of the face, offset to the back of the face, leveling course height, leveling course cut. We've got our critical fill back slope, so that's the slope of the backfill material. It's also going to dictate the extent of the tiebacks. And then we've got our critical backfill bottom width, so the offset here for that tieback. If we go 5, we can see it increases. We've got our minimum wall embedment, and we've got our tie-back spacing vertically. So I've got it set at 25 centimeters. If we turn on advanced parameters, we can see we have our minimum tie-back cover. So I've got a foot there, so it's not adding in that last tie-back that it could, just in the intention of preserving that minimum cover over the tie-back. And then we've got our fill slope on the other side. So with this, if we have something that is very high, eventually if we cross over and we start coming down the other side, that is going to create that envelope so where it knows to stop. And then that road width on the opposite side as well is the same thing. We just want to create an envelope so it knows where to stop that wall and it doesn't continue up forever. So that's that. We'll hit OK. We'll hit OK. We'll hit OK, and we are going to assign this template to our road. So I'll go from station 475 to 530. Assigned by range. 475 to 530. And there we are. So we can see two things. One, we've got the steps at the top rather than being the top matching the road grade. But we can see the how far down that's going is based off of the depth we have assigned. Now that may be appropriate somewhere like this where we want to step it down through the draw, but if we have something like this where maybe from 595 or 495, we want to keep it with that footing at a set elevation. So let's assign that elevation of 130 or 113 for the remainder of this template. So this is going to be another use for it. We're going to do it as a new template. We're going to come in here. I'm going to change that toe of wall elevation to be the actual elevation I want the toe of the wall to be, and I'm going to turn on this fixed toe by turning on the 1. We'll hit OK. We'll hit OK. We'll hit OK. And we are going to assign that. Let's go right from that 495 that we said. And there we are. So our footing elevation where we've assigned that with the fixed toe is set. So that's great if you have the site that allows you to work with a zero grade on your wall footing. We can take that a step further and combine that with overrides to get a grade that is independent of the road grade, but not just stuck with 0. So I've got that being assigned from 495 to 530. So that is a distance of 35 meters. If I want that to go up at a 5% grade, well, I've got 35 meters times 0.05 gives me a difference of 1.75. So we want to go from 113 to 1.75 at the end. We'll go into assign by range. We'll go to overrides. We'll select that parameter that we'd like. Total of all. We'll click add. So at station 495, we're going to keep it at the default. But by station 530, we want to go from that to 113 plus 1.75. So 114.75. So we've got that. And after that, it doesn't matter, so we won't close it back in. We'll hit OK. And there we are. We can see the grade of that wall footing extends up at about 5%. So it makes it easier to excavate and place your blocks. So that is the new GRS or MSE template. It should be fairly flexible and hopefully easy to use.